If any of you ever watched my favorite Gem series, you probably know that I'm a huge fan of racing games. The thing is that I do love the sense of speed and how fast am I going and do crazy stuff, depending if I'm racing in cars, trucks, bikes, boats, or even anti-gravity ships. Now there's plenty of subgenres in the racing scene apart from your arcade, sims, or even kart racers. But there's one particular subgenre that I don't see very often: RC racing games.
Shit, sorry!
RCs are small, quick, and surprisingly durable at scaled speeds going at 200 plus miles per hour. Now radio controls has been around long before gaming first existed. But RC video games, however, are actually quite a rare sight. And even more elusive if you only count the good ones, weeding out the entire Unity mobile schlock, more than a Rabbit Luigi video mentioning the same 34 games over and over on his listicles. Yeah, I know it's a stretch. So in this video, we take a look at those rare radio racers, those sequestered sports sprinters, and those distant dandle dashers. But hello you, I'm Mace 2.0, mad mix of many, and this is the top 5 greatest, and overlooked, RC racing games. Now by all means, let's bust a move and get it started. Time's wasted. Oh, and the rest of the video isn't me ripping off Larry's, so forgive me. Now speaking of rare radio racers, let's begin with one of the very classic Nintendo racing games and most well-known game on the list: RC Pro-Am. Rare's 1987 classic is considered to be the first RC racing game in history, since I couldn't find one RC racer beforehand. I'm throwing in the entire 4-game franchise because they're all pretty damn good. These are all isometric racers, where you compete against 3 opponents, and all you have to do is either win or avoid being in last place. They're fast-paced, quick and easy to play, but it also gets more challenging as you progress further in the game. RC Pro-Am includes vehicular combat elements to the mix, making this to help you avoid losing. There are things scattered all over the track like hazards or collectibles to help you upgrade your car or give you additional ammo. But the downside to the original RC Pro-Am is how the race ends. You see, in a normal racing game, the race ends with you and some friends cross the finish line. RC Pro-Am actually ends with the leader crossing the finish. So if you're falling last halfway through the track, trying to make it back up, and then some lead opponent reaches the finish line first, then you're screwed. Apart from that, the sequel adds and improves on what the original has done. Super RC Pro-Am is a good addition for the Game Boy, not just being a lazy stripped down port. The game improves the handling, lets you finish the race if you're second or not, and supports multiplayer via link cables. RC Pro-Am 2 goes this even further beyond, by adding new weapons, hazards, minigames, and new environments. The game forgoes to collecting upgrades on the track in place of buying them before a new race begins. Lastly, there's Championship Pro-Am on Sega Genesis, which is a 16-bit remake of the NES original. Apart from the improved graphics and music, this plays similar to the original NES version, but racing with 5 opponents at the same time. But like the original, you need to be at the top 3 for each race to play further, and it's worth checking out if you're on the Genesis. Although the track designs for these games are simple and primitive comparing to others, it's still a really fun series that was the inspiration for Rock'n'Roll Racing, Super Off-Road, and even Mario Kart of all things. Well, according to Wikipedia, that is. Heck, the original end sequel was included in Rare Replay, which is an excellent compilation for the Xbox One. I personally recommend playing RC Pro-Am 2 since that's my favorite in the series, and pretty much the most advanced. Go check them out. So this is the most recent RC game I've played for this list. This is 3D Ultra Radio Control Racers Deluxe, TRAXXAS Edition. Now that sounds like a mouthload, but let's just say RC Racers Deluxe for short. Developed by a small company known as 3D Ultra, and published by Sierra Entertainment. This game is quite rad in the early 2000s. You could do a single race, local multiplayer, or in a series of races. And then you select a wide number of tracks, ranging from your backyard in some pond to something wild like a mini golf course and haunted graveyards. Since this is considered as a deluxe edition, which is technically the game's 2.0 of things, this game added 6 new tracks, a different intro cinematic, the options of having controlled steering and damage, a new battle mode, and as the title suggests, adding a couple TRAXXAS cars. During racing, the gameplay is quite on par as basic racing goes, and it has various pickups scattered all over the track, ranging from missiles, boosts, oil slicks, become a ghost, and even electric shocks. The tracks themselves look kinda strange, as it was crammed to a degree, complete with a weird, not completely top-down perspective. The level backgrounds are all pre-rendered, similar to various 3D games in the 90s like Resident Evil or Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now I swear to Christ, if anyone pronounced Ocarina deserves my fist to your face. I could explain this all day. Now the car selection is much, just 4 different types, which are a monster truck, TRAXXAS Rustler, Baja Bug, and the TRAXXAS Bandit. Technically the TRAXXAS ones are just reskins of previous cars in the original, but whatever. The good thing is that you can actually customize your car. Well, limited to paint, but you can actually make your little 128 by 128 bitmap to do that, which is nice. And the game files inside actually has the PSD files to make the good stuff. Now during the championships, you can actually upgrade your car so you can drive faster and tighter, but this also comes in 2 difficulty modes, which are easy and hard. And from what I'm playing, it really shows. The hard mode just gets my ass handed by the opponents, and this is just me playing with a lack of upgrades. Now beyond racing, there are a couple banner modes to play alone or with a friend. One is where you push as many balls to the center more than your opponent, and the other is RC Soccer where 2 teams has to push a soccer ball to their net to score. Yeah, this game made Rocket League 15 years before that became a thing. Let alone The Simpsons, which people wrongly predicted by a month and a half. When it comes down to setbacks, well, this is a budget game, so there might be some places that's unpolished. First off, you only race against 3 opponents. I'm not a fan of the collision because it feels like bumper cars when you hit something. There is lack of alpha transparency, hence the Saturn-style dithering effects. Graphics for the cars are quite low res. In-game customization could have been done quite better with RGB sliders. Not much replay value, and the controls needed some improvement. But that aside, this is actually pretty decent for a budget game, and it's worth checking out when you have the chance.
Booyah! Okay, that does it, pretty boy. Nice touch.
Now if you're looking for something a little more simulated, then Virtual RC Pro is the game for you. Now this I'm pretty sure is the sequel to Virtual RC Racing in the mid-2000s. This one here is made purely for those who's serious into RCs, as an obsessive. Even though it looks a bit dull in places, has a small fanbase, and seemingly empty due to said fanbase, it's still going on surprisingly as of this day. Yeah. Now this game lets you drive various small-scale cars, from electric stadium trucks, nitro buggies to rally cars, or if you want to go to NASCAR trucks, touring cars, and those little small pan cars that zips around 60 kilometers an hour. Yeah, that's crazy. Now the tracks are mostly based off real-life RC courses, while various are fictitious. It has various things to customize and tune your car for the pure hell of it, which is alright. And you can even change the settings for the track, from the temperature, course grips, and even humidity. Yeah, humidity. Now if you want to go beyond crazy, then there's an official VRC USB peripheral where it connects this to your RC receiver, and you play it using your RC remote in-game, which is pretty cool. Beforehand, the original VRC had a couple official USB controllers, but the adapter for your real remote is a step up. Now first off, I wouldn't recommend buying this, unless you know a damn thing about RC mechanics in general. Plus, I don't think you can just play this with a Walmart RC remote, by the way. But that's just me being skeptical. Okay, but you'd be asking, why is this placed in the middle of the list, and not much higher? First off, the controls can be frustrating to get used to. Since this is a simulator, the controls for these RCs I wouldn't call accurate. I mean, yeah, I do have a couple RCs that zipped around like crazy, but I wouldn't think you'd be flipping around like a madman having a seizure when you simply hit one of those mound things, or slip around the floor like ice, despite you're driving on dirt, asphalt, or even the carpet. Another complaint is that despite it's free, you still have to pay up for the additional cars and tracks. And one more thing is that according to this footage, I just suck at it. The best recommendation is the stadium truck, since it's slower, but much easier to control, by the way. But then again, this game is recommended by various RC companies, like Tamiya, Kyosho, Reedy, Tekken, etc. But it's a must for those die-hard RC enthusiasts. It puts hair on your chest. But for those who want a fun RC game, well, look somewhere else in this video. In this case, stick around. If VRC Pro seems too realistic and you're looking for something a bit more arcadey, then at least we have RC Day Go.
RC Day Go!
I mentioned this game back in the first edition of my favorite gems, starting the PS1, and I have slacked off on that part. But I'm going to explain this again, but with better experience since I've actually played this game through and through. RC Day Go is a port of an arcade game from 1999, and developed by the almighty arcade kings Taito. This is what I call the hardest racing game that makes F-Zero GX looks like 100cc Mario Kart in comparison. It's just because of the damn timer being set too tight. But that's just the arcade mode, incorrectly dubbed Quick Race. But what I haven't mentioned on the PlayStation 1 Gems video is the Championship mode, which in the game's mercy doesn't have a timer on you. But that's not saying it's much easier. Starting in this mode, you select one of 3 preset cars to race with, and you upgrade your machine by spending points from the shop. In the race, your view is fixed to the stands like you would do when driving an RC on a track. But there's 2 different kinds of tracks, by the way, which are on and off-road. In each win you make, you upgrade to make your car stronger, faster, and more agile against corners. While on the flip side, the game gets more harder and aggressive. Chances are you may be like, are you sure you're over-exaggerating? How could this be harder than F-Zero GX? Well, bitch, some of you I assume are one of those PC schmucks who's against console gaming, prefers mouse and keyboards, and whines about games not having 4K, 120fps, or god forbid, FOV slider support. But this is a PS1 game in 2000 where its normal res is at 320 by 240 pixels, which in this case is 4x3 running at 60 frames per second. The view is much limited, and the later tracks gets more complex, plus the car could zip around this place cutting through corners like butter with a hot knife. So back to RC Day Go. Walkthroughs for this game should be plenty, but yet there's lacking. Apart from one series of videos recorded with a potato, and a recent long play. Now I've beaten this game without such walkthroughs, but I'll warn you about the last 2 levels that will tear your soul apart. And I'm not kidding. Dark Souls is just cheap perlet tricks comparing to this one. Now apart from the sheer hard difficulty, the one thing that blows is that this is just a single player only game. But then again, it wouldn't feel too bad since who actually does multiplayer in RC Day Go? Yeah, no one does. Now if you manage to beat this game, then congratulations, you can beat anything. But that's only if you're brave enough to play through this. Now to cool myself talking about RC Day Go for the first time, this game is about speed, timing, and precision. And this is a great challenge for the racing game pros out there. Yeah, you should play it.
moving into the final stages of the race. Time to jump full of water! Crucial stage.
So here's a few honorable mentions. Some of these games I haven't played in its entirety, or I haven't played them at all. So I'll just mention these games here instead. What, you think I'd leave this game behind unmentioned? Dude, please. When it comes to RC racing games, nothing ever comes close to be the greatest RC racer than Acclaim's 1999 cult classic known as Revolt. Developed by Acclaim Studios London, which was formerly Probe Entertainment, known for their works such as Forsaken and Extreme G. This game encapsulates the idea of racing in a small-scale perspective. That is not Micro Machines, by the way. You have a wide selection of RC cars to choose from, and tracks that are located in mundane settings such as the suburban, supermarkets, museums, the Old West, and even cruise ships. The game sparks with personality and soul, with every car being quite colorful, levels that are memorable and fun to race in, and even a great soundtrack to boot. The controls are great, and a little tight on the handling, but you'll get used to it since these are RC cars after all. So like RC Pro-Am and RC Racers Deluxe, it has vehicular combat elements to the mix, but this time is more akin to Mario Kart since these pickups play similar in nature. The game has your standard single race, time trials, and practice mode, but it also has a championship mode, and by winning those, rewards you with more cars and tracks. You could also unlock more cars by beating the challenge times in time trial, or collecting stars in practice mode. The game also supports multiplayer, but it's a little complicated to use since there's no network. But there are ways to play Revolt multiplayer, but you have to mess around with your Wi-Fi to do so. Another note is that the game comes with a level editor to create your own tracks, and it has mod support. Yeah, mod support for the base game isn't really id Tech or Source, but you could import custom cars, tracks, and even graphics. But there are some downsides to this game. Like how annoying the power-ups can be when you ended up getting the bomb like every time because RNG, the level editor is much limited, the physics are a bit wonky in some places, and even compatibility issues. But at least there's a fix for that with good old RVGL, which in itself improves the game tenfold by having proper anti-aliasing, shaders, improved netcode, and as the title suggests, running on OpenGL. Oh, and mod support is more extensive as well, so you can make your own original levels and cars even further beyond. There's also Revolt Zone for those who want to get some of that custom content. I even made my own cars and tracks for this game, and I still do on occasion. Another thing is that this game is still supported by the community as of this day, and RVGL itself is currently up to date as of January 18th, 2019. Now by all means, go download the game. But the thing is that this isn't really abandonware, and I don't really condone the piracy, but, you know, screw it. Pirate the hell out of this by any means. The real owners of the Revolt IP are very incompetent since their mobile exclusive sequels are lackluster. I recommend playing the original PC version since the console ports are quite subpar at best. Except the Dreamcast port, which is good. Now, Revolt is almost 2 decades old at this point, and I question myself, what kind of RC racer will it take to surpass Revolt? That answer will be inconclusive, but having an obscure game going in strong for over 20 years is quite impressive. With the game being quite timeless and a strong loyal fanbase, all I have to say is, long live Revolt.